This episode of Gators Breakdown is brought to you by MyBookie. Use promo code Gators on a deposit of $500 or more, and you can claim a bonus of up to $200. Visit mybookie.ag for more details. This episode of Gators Breakdown is also brought to you by Shark Coatings. Get a different kind of gift this holiday season. Visit sharkfloorcoatings.com when you need professional floor coating services done right the first time.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shout-outs, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown. Because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC, coming at you not long after Oregon State defeats Florida 30-3. And about as uninspiring, inexcusable in some ways, embarrassing in some ways, 30-3 loss to the Oregon State Beavers. And we'll get into it. We'll go through the game a bit, as ugly as it was. That helps tell the story of this game. And then a little bit of big picture. We got time for that, though. But this will be all right on the heels of the game, kind of going back and looking at the game. Of course, some of the storylines from the season kind of tie in to what happened in this game. But, man, that was ugly. I would like to say we could see something like this coming. It's not totally surprising. I guess let me put it that way. Did I expect it? No, I did not. But, of course, I guess you go back and look at it. There are reasons that this could happen. Of course, you change quarterbacks. You're missing your best player in your offensive lineman in Osiris Torrance. All the changes, all the guys leaving the program. And look, that has been a storyline we've talked about the last couple of weeks with this ball game. But, man, that was even uglier than I expected. I expected Oregon State to win this game. I picked Oregon State to win this game, but not like that. And that was about as bad as it could be. A lot of things kind of culminated that we had seen throughout this season. And that's what we got in Las Vegas. The team didn't look prepared. The team did not look ready. And that's not to take anything away from Oregon State. I think we kind of knew coming into this game they would be ready to play. And it was going to be Florida's job to go be ready, get prepared for this game, and they were not. So, man, that was ugly. I know this leaves a lot of questions for the future in Billy Napier's first season. But you know, I can't tell you how to feel on this one. That's and what it means, big picture, long picture. I know the first seasons can bring a whole lot of unexpected turns and frustrations. And look, I'll go back to it. I picked Florida 9-3 at the beginning of the season. Now, that looks absolutely foolish of me, but I was not going to be surprised of first year up and downs. And there were a lot of downs this season when it was all said and done for the Gators. Definitely ending this season right here with a 30-3 loss to Oregon State in the bowl game. Florida falls to 6-7 on the season, and it is the first time since 1978, 1979 that the Gators have back-to-back losing seasons. So, that one was ugly. We'll get into it. Everybody, I know you don't like the results, but hit that like button. That helps me out. Coming right here on Gators Breakdown on YouTube version. If you're watching live, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You may not like the result. You may not like the subject matter, but you like that. So we can sit here. We talk Gators day in, day out, week in, week out, game in, game out. So we do right here. So hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Gators Breakdown Plus. Right now, the Discord server, I know it's lit up right now. Some good, some bad, probably some taken too far. Maybe when we look at it, hopefully, but a lot of conversation going on there. on Gators Breakdown Plus in that Discord. If you want to talk to some fellow Gator fans, keep the conversation going. Of course, a big week coming up with early signing day. A lot of conversation, a lot of content right there at Gators Breakdown Plus. So, all right, let's get into it right here for the Gators. Let's go through the game. Of course, Gators start with the ball first, 3-and-out on the first drive. And that was going to be an indication of how this game would go. Very first play, Pearsall nowhere to run, tried to get him involved early. And then Oregon State drops a pick on the second play of the game. And then Caleb Douglas drops a third down pass. Would have been shorter anyway, if not for the drop. But Gators go 3-and-out, first drive. Oregon State gets the ball. And about the only time Florida would get to the quarterback, pressure the quarterback, a big sack by Princely on second down on the Beavers' first drive. And said in the preview, if you get in position, much like, not like the Florida State game, not like Tennessee and Hendon Hooker, not like other quarterbacks Florida has faced this season, when a quarterback drops back to pass and you get to him and he somehow squirts away. Not this time, and that's what was not going to be the case here for Oregon State, of course. So you get to him, Princely gets to him for the big hit, and hey, the Beavers go 3-and-out. And then a big punt for Oregon State. Florida has to start at their own 10-yard line, and they would put some plays together here the next couple of drives. That would be about it for the rest of the game, for the most part. And right here, Gators start at their own 10, get a 1st and 5 after offsides on Oregon State. Later, 3rd and 5 goes for a 10 on a slant to Pearsall. Your slants, not been there for a lot of times this year, but a little bit of something we hadn't seen, I guess, much this year was the slant pass that fell incomplete over and over again this season. You saw Jack Miller hit one to Pearsall in this game. First down, Gators. Another first down as Miller finds ETN for 9 yards on a 2nd and 8. Very next play, Miller finds Pearsall for 19 across the field. Would be one of his best throws of the game. The Gators, here we go. At the 36 and driving. Get to a 3rd and 6. Cam Waits making his first start, gets called for a false start. Now it's 3rd and 11. Another false start, this time by center Kingsley Eggleston. Now 3rd and 16 from the Gators from the Oregon State 42. Pass goes for 7 yards to Jonathan Odom. 52-yard field goal missed. Still scoreless. But this goes to the point, as I said, we can go through the game because there's a storyline here. And where did all these penalties and undisciplined play come from at the end of the season? And it's been the last 3 games versus Vanderbilt, Florida State, and now the bowl game versus Oregon State. And Florida was riding a wave of momentum versus South Carolina. And for whatever reason, the bottom falls out on penalties. The bottom falls out on discipline. Bottom falls out on mental errors and mistakes. Florida had some time off, maybe to clean those things up. This team, there's one part. Look, let me go to one part too. This was a bowl game. How much can you want it? How much do you want to take of it away from it? How much can you take away from it? How much do you want? All that comes into play. It is a bowl game. I don't think much of it is expected from not the Gator team in the mold that we saw much of this year as far as players go, but at least preparation, at least the mental side of it, of being ready to go play a game. The things that we saw that we kept pointing to versus Vanderbilt, and this wasn't just penalties, it's the timing of the penalties. Florida strung some plays together, cross midfield, and would just fall apart, collapse. That wouldn't be the last time we'd see a penalty like that for the Gators offense, and it continued to the Gator defense later on as well. But the Gators missed a field goal. Penalties backed them up. It was a 52-yard field goal, missed, 0-0. Then Oregon State hits their first big play of the game for a first down. A 36-yard pass goes down to the Florida 19. And then running back Damian Martinez goes down on the very next play for Oregon State. And he's been their best player pretty much at least the second half of the year. And they go and put up 30 points on this Florida defense pretty much without their best player. or one of their best players. Let me put it, I haven't watched enough of them in the last couple of weeks, but going through the preview, watching him a little bit in the late Pac-12 games, he was a guy you had to watch. He's a guy that's been on strong. He goes down early in the game. They don't have one of their best players for the rest of the game. Didn't hurt him at all. Oregon State scores 3 plays later. Tyon Lindsey sweep around the left edge. No one home for Florida. 7-0 Beavers. First play of the Gators drive. Miller finds Ty Bowman 15. So you get to a 3rd and 2 later. First big gain as Montreal Johnson goes for 14. Gators ground game just could not get going. That was evident early on. This, as I mentioned, this 3rd and 2 that Montreal Johnson goes for 14 was about it in the Gators run game as far as the running backs go. This offensive line without Osiris Torrance was ugly. And it's 2 out of the last 3 games. You had him versus Vanderbilt, but 2 of the last 3 games with this Gator ground game, as good as they have been at times this year, looked nowhere like we had seen at times this year that you could lean on the ground game. But you did have the one big run right there. Gators get down to the Beavers 38, and that's the end of the first quarter. 7-0 Oregon State at that time. Gators driving again. Back-to-back drives here. Jack Miller had started 0 for 3. Then he goes 6 for 6 on his next 6. So he's like, he's 6 of 9 at that point. Wouldn't do much after that. First play of second quarter. Coming out of the quarter break, another false start. Once again, you cross the 50. You get in the scoring range. And another false start. Sets up a 3rd and 11 a few plays later. Miller has to scramble for 4. 4th and 8. Gators going for it. Oregon State brings the heat. The pass to Frazier falls incomplete. Another drive where a penalty derails it. Continuing the late season surge of penalties for Florida. Continuing the late season mental mistakes of this team. Oregon State takes over their own 31. They switch quarterbacks here. Penalty takes it back to the 36. Later sets up a 3rd and 9 after a big hit by Justice Boone as he drops back on a play. 3 and out for the Beavers. So Gators trying to stay in it here. Florida takes over at their own 12, gets to 3rd and 9. Only a 4-yard scramble for Miller. He had all day to throw. We didn't see a replay on that, so I'm assuming coverage was good for Oregon State, or Miller just didn't see if there was a guy open. He has to leave the pocket. Nothing happens. After the punt, Oregon State takes over their own 32. First play, offsides for Florida. So sets up a 1st and 5 for Oregon State. Another penalty for the Gators. Jebbia still in at quarterback after replacing Gobranson on the previous drive. After a 1st down for Oregon State fumbles a snap. Then lost to 12 after Wingo makes the tackle. So it sets up a 3rd and 12. A couple plays later. And, of course, the Gators will call for pass interference. Jadarius Perkins with an inexcusable penalty as the ball was unlikely to be caught. The throw wasn't on target, but Perkins gets there early, gets called for pass interference. Another costly penalty, this time on the defense. But once again, this was 3rd down. You were getting off the field. You didn't have to get there early. You didn't have to go interfere with the receiver. So another time, just the timing of a penalty. Very next play, Oregon State, Fenwick runs 29 yards down to the Gators 13. Florida gets another 3rd and 6 right here at the Florida 9. Jaden Hill, Rashad Torrance come in, make a tackle just short of the stick. Sets up a 4th and 1. Oregon State, penalty. Now it's 4th and 6. They kick a field goal, 10-0. Now penalty ends up hurting Oregon State there. Gators need to get something before halftime. And how many times have we said that? Talking about storylines throughout the season. Talking about recent struggles for this Gators team. Needing something before halftime. Game's kind of not going your way, but the chance to salvage something, you had to give the ball to you started the game with the ball. Oregon State's going to get the ball after halftime. You've got to go put up some points. Gators need something before halftime. 4:25 left in the first half. 1st and 10 at the 25. Montrell Johnson, 1-yard loss. Miller sacked by former Gator Andrew Chatfield on 2nd and 11. 3rd and 21 now. Johnson run goes for nothing. Not taking any chances on 3rd and 21. Okay, I understand that. That's just what happens. Gators go 3 and out with absolutely needing points. This continuation of not being able to do anything going into halftime, coming out of halftime, that continued here too. But granted, as I said, this one is hard to judge. There's so much change going on with the team. I mean, if Anthony Richardson was having trouble at quarterback, put together drives before halftime when Florida needed points, it wasn't automatically going to start fixing itself here, especially when Florida can't run the ball. And they started this drive trying to run the ball. So as I said in the preview, and I'm not breaking any news, and you guys know it too. I'm sure you guys had this thought too. Florida needed the run game in this. Jack Miller was not going to win this game by putting it on his shoulders. It was just not. There was no way that was going to happen. So if you got the run game that we had seen at times this year, okay, Florida was going to stand a chance in this game. But once Florida couldn't get the ground game going, my confidence in trying to get in this game, it was 10-0 at halftime. Felt like it was 30-0. Because Florida, if Florida wasn't running the ball, they were not getting back in this game. But once again, just completely fall over themselves right before halftime. So Oregon State gets the ball. Take over at their own 15, 2:43 left in the first half. Gators call a timeout with 2:02 left once they got to a 3rd and 1 situation. In Oregon State, they try a trick play. It was covered, but they run and get it anyway. So that is another example of, hey, there you go. It was just going to happen in this game. Then, very next play goes for 16. They get another first down to the Florida 44, eventually gets down to the 15, sets up an easier field goal, but it's blocked. Special teams show up for the Gators here, keeping them in this game. Jordan Young blocks the field goal. Derek Wingo takes it near midfield. There's a penalty. Doesn't really matter. That ends the first half. 10-0 Oregon State. As I said, it felt like it was 30-0 just because of what Florida's offense was not able to do. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to throw up the first half stats. Putrid. Ugly. First quarter, Florida had 91 yards. Remember, we said they were driving. They would get past midfield, but penalties would derail the drives. But 23 yards rushing in the first quarter. That was not going to get it done. As I said, Jack Miller was 6 of 9 at one point. But then go to the second quarter right here. Look at that. 2 total yards in the second quarter. That's inexcusable. I don't care who's that quarterback. I don't care who's playing offensive line. You don't go have just 2 yards in a quarter. Now, it is tough to take away what this means for Billy Napier in the future, all that. I'm just talking about this game. That's inexcusable. Oh, Florida would only get 5 yards in the third quarter, by the way. So there was 2 quarters where Florida had 8 combined yards. First half, 10-0 Oregon State. 185 yards to 93. Florida, 25 rushing yards. 3.4 yards per play. 5 penalties in the first half for 35 yards. Was not getting it done there for the Gators, of course. But you still had some hope. It's halftime. You're only down 10-0 in a game. As I said, in the second quarter, you only have 2 yards. Never thought I'd see that, by the way. Abysmal performance right there in the second quarter. And that would continue into the third quarter. Oregon State drive They get the ball first. Remember that. So they get a drive. And it gets down to 3rd and 1. The Gators defense stands tall with a big time a Trey Dean blitz and tackle behind the line of scrimmage for him. So all right, first drive. Hey, the Gators are gonna get off the field. Nope. Special teams rears its head again. You get the tackle behind the line of scrimmage. Fourth down, only for the Beavers to run a fake punt for 11 yards. They cross midfield to the Gators 45. So you get the stop on 3rd down, only for it not to matter. Another special teams issue for the Gators this season. But the Gators do get Oregon State to another 3rd down. This time it's 3rd and 5. Oh, hey, here we go. Another penalty. Antoine Powell jumps offsides. So now, see, for the offense, you can I don't want to make excuses, but there was so much change, especially at the quarterback. So you got cadence to worry about. You got calls to worry about. Cameron Waits is there starting. So it's a somewhat new look offensive line, just a little bit. Most 4 out of 5 starters were playing. So I'm not going to throw that one there. But offense with the quarterback change, timing, cadence, all that stuff. Okay, all right, maybe. Limited time to prepare for this one. Okay. If you want to sell me a little, don't get me wrong, I think those penalties are inexcusable because of what we have seen the last couple of games from the Gators as well. It's just a continuation of that. But on defense, nah. And we've seen that they've been part of this bad timing of penalties. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's not really a good time for penalties, especially a high number of penalties. But for Florida, they've been coming on 3rd down. They've been coming on stops. They've been coming just when the most inopportune times they absolutely could. Florida got a 3rd and 5 here. Antoine Powell-Ryland jumps offsides, gives Oregon State a 1st down. 2 plays later, another penalty. Another inexcusable penalty. This time on Rashad Torrance for a late hit on a sliding quarterback. You can't make that hit. And that wasn't even close. That wasn't even questionable. Some of those are questionable. This one wasn't. Another inexcusable, undisciplined penalty. All that was supposed to be fixed. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that was something as a topic, and it looked for the most part that those kind of issues like that were fixed. But what happened toward the end of the season? You had just beat South Carolina, and then all of a sudden, all this stuff pops up in the last 3 games of the season. That's it. I'm flabbergasted by that. There's no explanation for it. You could say if you lost to South Carolina, that okay, well then you go in the season on you hang in your head just a bit. But Florida was feeling about as good as they could for themselves after beating Texas A&M, after beating South Carolina, and then all these issues came up. If all these issues had came up after you get a bye week and you lose to Georgia, and we started seeing all these penalty issues, undisciplined issues after the Georgia game, okay, I can understand that. But to win at Texas A&M, to win against South Carolina, and then have these type of penalties and this type of undisciplined play, I don't care if it's a bowl game or not. It's a continuation of what we have seen the last 2 games. This team was just not mentally prepared to go out there and play a football game. So now the Beavers are at the Florida 12. A few plays later, Gulbranson. I hope I'm saying his name right. I've heard it a couple of different ways. Gulbranson. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He finds Bolden in the end zone, laser between 2 Florida defenders. Bolden makes the tough catch. He gets sandwiched, hangs on to the ball. 17-0, Oregon State. And it was just another drive like we saw so many to end the season. Florida shoots themselves in the foot. Gives up some points. So down 17-0. Florida takes over at their own 19. Miller misses a wide open Caleb Douglas on 1st down. Then almost throws an interception on the sideline. Then he gets sacked on 3rd and 10. Another 3 and out. At this point, you could tell Oregon State was feeling some confidence that they could get back and pressure Miller. It wasn't all Miller. I mean, he did not have a whole lot of great protection in this game, but there were some throws right here where he did have the protection, didn't make the throw. So it was just an up and down day for the offensive line and pass blocking. But Oregon State seemed to do a really good job of bringing the pressure on 3rd down, being big the big plays, the important plays. They knew when to bring the pressure, got to Miller, affected him. Even when they didn't get to him, of course. He was never comfortable this game after that 6-for-6 stretch, never got comfortable again. All right, so here we go. Miller gets sacked on 3rd and 10, another 3 and out, and the Beavers block the punt, or Crawshaw has to hurry, takes way too many steps, punts the ball low into his own player. It looked like a block punt at first. Then they go on to show it was a punt right into the back of their own player. Another special teams blunder by Florida. So, and this is what I'm talking about. We can sit here and say, well, it's a bowl game, it doesn't matter. Well, in some ways, that's true. I'll agree with you. I mean, the fan base had a heart to believe me. I saw the numbers from the preview and people trying to listen and get ready for this game. I know you weren't excited for this game. The players probably were not either. But this was where I'm talking about, some of the continuations from this season was special teams. Another one were just inexcusable at times this year. Subpar play way too many times in the special teams department this year. And hey, look, Florida doesn't have a dedicated special teams coach. We know that. That was questioned a good bit when Billy Napier made some of these hires. And boy, I tell you what, it has absolutely come to fruition this season. Florida needs some help there. And this game showed it, where fake punts for Oregon State goes for conversions. Florida gets a punt blocked. I mean, Florida had their own blocked field goal, but that was about it. So Oregon State, 1st and goal inside the 10. Gators self-destructing right here. They actually get Oregon State to 3rd and goal at the 7. I mean, Florida kept getting Oregon State in 3rd downs where they could make some plays. But Gulbertson, easy to run into the touchdown, or into the end zone for the touchdown. Missed the extra point, 23-0 Oregon State at that point. And then Florida starts their own next drive at their own 29. 1 first down later leads to one first down, and then later on leads to a 3rd and 13 sack of Jack Miller. Did get a first down. That was Florida's first since the first quarter. You're down 23-0. Late in the game, you finally get another first down. Punt gets down at the Oregon State 1-yard line or 2-yard line, puts the Beavers, had two Beaver players running into each other. Okay, maybe something big can happen here. Maybe something to turn the momentum late. Doesn't really matter. Oregon State starts to drive at the 2-yard line. They go 98 yards. String together some first downs, moving to Florida territory, hit a 23-yard pass to Bolden again, down to the 2-yard line. Touchdown later, play later. So Oregon State just goes 98 yards, 30-0 lead. Embarrassing performance right here for the Gators. Gator next drive, Ricky Pearsall gets involved, 28 yards. Then he draws a pass interference. Gators cross midfield. Hey, cross midfield. Guess what? False start. 2nd 9, false start. That goes to 2nd 14 after that. Later on 3rd and 3. 3rd and 3 at the Oregon State 22. Guess what? Hey, blow the whistle. Another false start for Florida. Now it's 3rd and 8 from the 27. That sets up a 4th and 2. Beavers are in the backfield at the handoff. Beats Waits at the snap. I know we were looking forward to seeing him, and he's got some developing still to go. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to make rash judgments on one game. First game, bowl game, all that. Yeah, we're not going to make too many rash decisions there or rash judgments. Turnover on downs at the Oregon State 23. Gators still with no points. Gators force a punt. They take over here. Unfortunate first play. Jonathan Odom has a catch and run. He goes down with an injury. Miller finds Bowman for a 38-yard gain down to the 6. That eventually goes for another sack of Jack Miller on 3rd and goal from the 14 after a fumble. 4th and goal from the Gators from the 23. Gators deciding to kick a field goal. The scoring streak stays alive, whatever that means, whatever that's worth for you. That don't mean a whole lot to me. Go for it on fourth down there. I don't care. Gators make the field goal, 30-3. Oregon State wins. Embarrassing performance there for the Gators. Oof, oof, oof. That's the famous Gators Breakdown Plus reaction. Oof. 30-3 Beavers over the Gators in the Las Vegas Bowl. Gators go to Vegas. Hope they had fun during the week because the game itself wasn't fun. Was not fun at all if you're a Gator fan. All right, we'll get into the stats. We'll take a final stat look, but before we do, your favorite athletes always strive to put themselves in a winning position. And it's about time you did too with MyBookie. MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests to fill all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere. Bet on the NFL, all these NFL games, Saturdays, now, Sundays, playoff push is coming up there. It's bowl season, plenty of college football to be betting on. Keep up there at MyBookie. Get the schedule there. These games played all weird times, all weird days right now. But you can bet at MyBookie. Use promo code Gators on a deposit of $500 or more, and you can claim a bonus of up to $200. That is promo code Gators to claim a brand new deposit bonus designed for bettors to, get their cash in and cash out quick. Experience sports in a whole new light and make this season a winning one. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
You know the goosebumps you get when Florida takes the field? Or when that 63-yard Hail Mary actually works? Or the thrill of a game-winning interception in the end zone? What a rush! You can experience that same rush every day at your home with Shark Coatings. We'll cover your old, ugly concrete with a beautiful industrial concrete coating and a warranty that lasts longer than most careers in professional football. So whether your garage floor is for parking, partying, or working out, Shark Coatings can transform it. And if your pool deck is starting to look like a bulldog, old, cracked, and smells like pee, Shark Coatings can transform that too. Shark Coatings is easy to clean, stain resistant, and is 100% antibacterial and antimicrobial. We're easy on the eyes and on the maintenance. Gator Nation is worldwide, and Shark Coatings is based right in the heart of it. So whether you live in Brunswick, Georgia, or Live Oak, Florida, down to Ocala, over to New Smyrna Beach, or anywhere in between, contact us for a free estimate today. Learn more at sharkfloorcoatings.com. That's sharkfloorcoatings.com.
All right. Thanks to our season sponsors there, MyBookie and Shark Coatings, for sponsoring Gators Breakdown this season. Everybody check them out if you have not done so yet. What you probably don't want to check out, oh man, these stats right here, not pretty for Florida at all. Total yards, 219 for the Gators, 353 for Oregon State. Gators 180 passing yards there with Jack Miller, 189 for Oregon State. I mean, look, no, Oregon State stats are not going to blow you away there, but I mean, look at the rushing yards, 164-39. And look, this is their game. If Florida was not going to be able to run the ball, they were going to beat Florida. If Florida was not going to be able to run the ball, Oregon State was going to be able to beat Florida. Hopefully I said that right. But yeah, 39 rushing yards for the Gators. That's not going to cut it. And look, Oregon State had been well known for their rush defense coming into this game. And it was going to be tough for Florida without Osiris Torrance. But no, I didn't expect that to go out there and just get 39 yards. But the biggest storyline for me is just kind of going to the undisciplined, inexcusable penalty count, timing, yardage, 11 penalties for 82 yards. 24 first downs for Oregon State compared to Florida's 13. Gators go 5 of 14 on third down. Oregon State 7 of 12. Gators also went for fourth down a couple of times, 0 for 2. 65 plays for Oregon State, 55 for Florida. Florida 4 yards a play. Oregon State 5.4. Average yards per rush, 1.2 for the Gators. And that counts sacks, of course. So adjusted, it's only 2.2 for the Gators. 5.1 yards a rush, taking out sacks for Oregon State. And red zone, there you go. Oregon State, 6 chances, they scored 5 times. Gators only in the red zone twice. Anytime they got close, penalty, not ending up in the end zone. Time of possession, I throw that one away. Doesn't really matter. No turnovers. And that's about what you see there with the stats. I mean, stats don't always tell the story of a game, but a couple right here absolutely do. Penalties, third downs, average yards per rush for the Gators. There's your key stats for the game. Let's take a look at the Gator stats. Yes, I guess we have to. Jack Miller, 13 of 22, 180 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 59% completion percentage. Florida rushing, and of course, this was where it's bad. Montreal Johnson, 11 carries, 14 yards. ETN, 8 carries, 14 yards. 28 yards between Johnson and ETN. Jack Miller, of course, not 13 attempts. Of course, the sacks come in here too. So take that, of course, in college football. Have to. 13 attempts, 13 yards. Mickey Pearsall leads the way in receptions. 4 catches, 65 yards, along with 28. He was targeted 5 times. Shaquille Bowman, 2 catches, 53 yards. Caleb Douglas, 2 for 25. Odom, 2 of 24. ETN, Johnson, 1 catch apiece. Frazier's in there with 1 catch apiece as well. Running backs not doing that was an angle, I think, of this game where could you get the running backs more involved in the passing game? That did not happen here. 7 different receivers there for the Gators. And on the other side, Oregon State. Goldbranson, Jebbia leading the way in the passing attack. 12 of 19 for Goldbranson. 165, 1 touchdown. Jebbia, 5 of 6, 24 yards. Oregon State rushing there. Fenwick, 21 attempts, 107 yards. 5.1 yard average. Coletto had the fake punt. 2 attempts for 17 yards. But it was Fenwick leading the way there. They had 164 yards rushing, 107 by Fenwick. And then Bolden leads the way for Oregon State receiver. 6 catches, 99 yards, and the 1 touchdown. He was targeted 9 times. 6 different receivers, 17 receptions, 189 yards for Oregon State. All right, so there you go. There was your look back at the game. All the ugly stats on Florida side. And of course, that puts Florida at 6-7 on the season, as I mentioned earlier in the episode. First time the Gators have had losing seasons in back-to-back seasons since 1978, 1979. So, with that, here's a look. One more time, we'll go back and look at it. The Gators' schedule so far, or not so far, for the season, 2022 season. Had the season opening win versus Utah, and we were all elated. Thought this thing was getting off to a great start. 29-26 win over Utah. And then the first inexcusable performance was to follow that up versus Kentucky 26-16. Then you had an inexcusable performance versus South Florida the next week, a very bad South Florida team, 31-28. Go to Knoxville, put up a good fight, 38-33 loss to Tennessee. So that, early in the season, you were 2-2. There were things we were pointing at that we were happy about and could see. We knew the defense was still an issue, and there was an inconsistent offense. And that would hang on for most of the season. Back-to-back wins over Eastern Washington and Missouri, setting up a big showdown versus LSU, and all the inconsistency, the bad defense showed up there, 45-35 LSU. Bye week, Jacksonville versus Georgia, 42-20 win for the Dogs. And then keep going back to it. We were all feeling a little bit better. Yes, we know Texas A&M, not a great team. 41-24 victory. Gators finally did something where if they were going to turn the season around, they went and did what they were supposed to do that. wouldn't beat a bad team, played against a bad team and played well. Then the big win versus South Carolina, that looks even better. And then I think we go back and look at that game and say somehow Florida blows out South Carolina 38-6. And we're feeling good, and then the bottom falls out. Somehow you were, whatever wave of momentum that you were supposed to be riding after the win versus the Aggies, after the win versus the Gamecocks, the Gators weren't able to build on it at all. Could not build on momentum at any point of the season. It is inexcusable to lose to Vanderbilt. I don't care if it's year one. You don't lose, you don't go to Nashville and lose to Vanderbilt. 31-24. And I probably call myself out a bit. I say inexcusable. And there are, in year ones, and I've said this, and I probably said it too many times, in year ones, there are games you're probably not supposed to win that you'll win, and games you're not supposed to lose that you'll lose. Okay, well, that maybe played out this year. Florida should not have beat Utah, but they did. Florida should not have lost to Vanderbilt, but they did. So maybe I'll dial back it is inexcusable to lose to Vanderbilt. But as I kind of going back to that point, first years have some inexplicable things happen. And too many for Florida. And then coming into the season, no idea if Florida State was going to be as good as they were. Had your chances in that game. Start off very well on offense. Had some chances to make some plays on defense. But you go to Tallahassee, lose 45-38. And then, of course, right here, losing 30-3 to end the season versus Oregon State. So when you look at it, you lost to all your rivals. You lost to Vanderbilt. You got blown out in your bowl game. And look, I'm not going to blame you if that does not scream excitement. It doesn't. Now, what does that mean for the future? I can't tell you how to feel. I can tell you how I feel. A lot of you probably lost some hope. Believe me, I've seen it. And I've seen the proclamations that Napier won't be the guy based on year one and how it looked at times this season. And speaking of rivals, you see Georgia and FSU and Tennessee and LSU all have impressive seasons. And then Florida goes 6-7. Progress was halted. The schedule's up there. There was some progress being made, or what you thought was progress being made, and then somebody tapped the brakes. Screeching tires. Not being able to ride any kind of momentum. So, of course, telling you how to feel is all the. Where does this go next? I mean, we've had coaches in Jim McElwain have a great first season and not amount to anything. We've had coaches with Dan Mullen having great first seasons and it not amount to anything. Now, I'm not saying because the opposites happen here that, all right, well, this is some kind of foundation building and it's all going to be better for it. I don't know. And I don't know if I've ever really said that, Billy Napier's going to be the guy to lead Florida back to the promised land. I was like, you hired him because of recruit, he was going to be a good recruiter. That's probably going to kind of fall back a little bit this week. We'll get into early signing day a bit. But of course we know roster building is going to be part of this. Acquiring players, acquiring talent. Billy Napier said it in his opening press conference. Transfer portal, of course, I think will be hit hard now that the Gators will be going back to Gainesville. Recruiting this week, we'll get much clearer picture of that, but I'm not expecting a great close. So I think paired this 6-7 season with, unless something changes, not a great close, I'm not going to blame you for not having some excitement about this program. I mean, this is 2 seasons in a row now where you've losing seasons. One of those, not Mullen's fault. Napier's fault, going back to Mullen last year. And one where he has to face some blame. Yes, it's first year, and you get some built-in excuses for year one. There's other year one coaches that have had success this year. Previous Gator coaches with some success in year one. It didn't amount to anything. But there's still a question of how this is going to turn out. Some of you, based off of year one, you think you've seen enough. You think you've seen enough with a lot of the questionable calls this year and the questionable game management this year. Whether Billy Napier needs an offensive coordinator or not. I'll go there and just quickly, and then we'll get off here a bit. The whole offseason to talk all these storylines. Billy Napier's not going to hire an offensive coordinator. I don't think he will. He wants to call the plays. I think for the most part, a lot of the plays would be there this year. And was the consistency there? No. Part of that quarterback, part of that Billy Napier. But I'm not saying he can't hire an OC. A lot of this is a head coach being a play caller and how much responsibility he has. This is a new age of college football. There is a lot of responsibility on the head coach. Recruiting, high school recruiting, transfer portal, NIL, traditional bag game recruiting. We know what happens. I'm not going to shy away from that. Learning Florida in year one. Making the transition from the Sun Belt to the SEC. I mean, there's a lot on his plate. If all those things weren't on his plate, and look, he's the head coach. This is the decision he has to make. Maybe there's too much responsibility to be a consistent play caller. Maybe the plays are there, but there's too much going on, too much responsibility for a head coach to put it all together on Saturdays. At the same time, I'm more than willing to see him with a different quarterback, his own quarterback. I think that's part of it. But I mean, we absolutely are going to have to see it next year. I mean, you don't get many opportunities to go look like what Florida looked like this year and then turn around and not have success or more consistent. I mean, the offense was not terrible this year. That's part of it at the same time. We harp on that just a bit because of a defense that made it where they had to score, where they had to put up points. I'm more worried about that side of the ball. And what does Florida have to point to on the defensive side of the ball? On the offensive side of the ball, we'll question that a little bit too because of the run game at times this year. And can that translate to year two? But I think we're looking for just more consistent quarterback play. And I think the coach can help some ways there. But as far as OC talks, if he's going to bring an offensive coordinator in, and I'm at the point where if he's going to, it's more for responsibility so he can concentrate on other things and not having to fully formulate the game plan. He'll be involved. He's the head coach. He should be. But the game in, game out, play in, play out, I think if he does go that route, makes that move, I think it's more for responsibility so he can concentrate, be more of the CEO. But I don't think it happens. I think we're going to get another season of Billy Napier calling plays and see what it looks like with another quarterback. I know that's a point of contention out there. And there's this process of building a foundation. You know, as fans, you'll want to have hope. And I know a lot of you, I've seen it, I hear it, in year one have lost some of it. Now, completely, I don't know. Some have. Some don't think this gets turned around. You can make all the proclamations. I'm not going to sit here and say he fixes it. I'm not going to sit here and say he's not. I don't know. I have no idea. I know year one doesn't tell us for sure, but year one didn't tell us that with Mullen either, or McElwain either, with the early success. We do get to use revisionist history there. Their great first seasons didn't amount to anything. It didn't, not at all. but also Billy Napier struggling in year one doesn't necessarily mean he's building the foundation of a slow build. That's what this is going to be. This is not going to be instantaneous unless, we see instant impact transfer portal acquisitions, young guys who played this year make a big jump, and some instant impact freshmen, which we'll get into this week in this 23 class. But this is certainly not going to be instant. We know that. This is not microwave. This might have to be a smoker. We'll see where that goes. But I'm not going to. If the thought is he's not going to do it, then I can't go that far. Now, if you want to question it, by all means, question it. Yeah, this was, there were too many, with the way the season ended, taking the whole season into account, to me, there's a lot of roller coasters there. That happens with first year, but I cannot, there was a lot left to be desired, put it that way. And I know I'm going all over the place here with this thought. We got plenty to get into, but the regression at the end of the season, and that it coming from nowhere after you should have been feeling good about yourself. Now, I know we look for things to look positive on. We look for little things to feel good about moving forward. As far as on the field, you got some good running backs. We'll see what that looks like with an offensive line that's going to be missing their best player, the team's best player. We all know it starts at quarterback. We got to see who Florida brings in. We know that position can elevate the positions and players around them. That's needed. That's absolutely needed. As for a defense, that's the big question. There's not much to point to on that side of the ball. You had six really good quarters in a 2-game stretch. That's about it. Created some turnovers this year. That's about it. So, but plenty of time to get in all these storylines. We'll get into a little bit with Will Miles on Monday because a lot comes from this game. We'll get together, do some more big picture thoughts, but we got all off season. Let's try and enjoy the holidays a bit. But yeah, I know, Gator fans, 2 years of this is not great. And some excitement in year one for a brand new head coach. The big win to start the season versus Utah. You felt really good there. And then that would not be an indication of the season. And I guess we could do that big picture as well. Game one, beating Utah was not an indication of how this season was going to go. Season one does not have to be an indication of where Billy Napier's career at Florida goes. But all right, that will do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. As Oregon State beats Florida 30-3 in the Las Vegas Bowl, that will do it for the season. Billy Napier's first season at 6-7. And still a lot of questions out there. I'm your host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. Everybody, hey, thank you so much for taking part week in and week out with us right here on Gators Breakdown. Many of you, I see the chat right there with me each and every week, watching these episodes, watching these reviews. Not many of them have been pretty this year, But man, everybody, thank you so much. All season, another season in the books. And this has been what, season 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Season 7 right here of Gators Breakdown. And many of you been along the ride the whole way. We did it again this season. Hopefully some bigger things for Gators Breakdown coming up as we'll turn the calendar from 22 to 23. But everybody, once again, thank you so much for hopping in here, all the interaction, all the conversation, week in, week out, right here on Gators Breakdown. That'll do it for this episode, guys. I will check you out later.